Now hear from Commissioner Darin Bushman, Paiute County, and will be followed by Seth Stinson. Commissioner, thank you for being here. You're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Right up in there on that mic there, yeah.
There we go. Gotta get my fat belly in. So I'm going to talk to you about the 2007 closed door collaborative appeal settlement that happened on the 10-mile allotment in Paiute County. This was a result of an ROD on the Tusher allotment, and that agreement was made between a group of NGOs led by the Grand Canyon Trust and the Forest Service. It's of note that Paiute County or the permittee were involved in those discussions or in any of the negotiations of that closed door agreement. It's evolved into a full-on collusion scheme between the federal land management agencies and the special interest groups, even prompting the Farm Bureau to denounce and withdraw its support from the collaboration that came out of that event. And the report that came from it was developed without the agency's best science and did not comply with NEPA, the Forest Plan, CEQ's implementing regulations, and a host of other violations. The CEQ and the report did actually include many of the pet ideas of the Grand Canyon Trust aimed at removing livestock from the public lands and became the underpinning for the Forest Service's efforts to drastically cut and eliminate grazing on the 10-mile allotment. The Forest Service knowingly and willfully misused and violated multiple sections of 36 and 40 CFR, NEPA, CEQs, so on and so forth, through its improper use of the annual operating instructions to the permittees, while simultaneously representing the permittees that such violations were non-appealable. The Forest Service evaded its own legal requirements while appeasing those environmental groups in their agenda to remove all the grazing on the public lands. There were multiple exclosures placed on the allotment. In one case, the exclosure excluded 60% of the pasture's forage production. The environmental groups also placed multiple exclosures without doing proper NEPA studies. And then the permittee was told that if he protested, he would risk being removed from the allotment and forfeiting his grazing permit through selective monitoring. The Forest Service continued to assure the rancher that they would be allowed to graze on the land, and this later resulted in a 40% proposed permanent reduction by the Forest Service. And in the end, the rancher took a 5-year, 60% voluntary reduction, which was falsely labeled because the permittee was told there was no recourse, no legal options for them. And interestingly enough, the exclosures were built with the help of volunteers from the environmental organizations. This has cost the rancher $1.2 million in lost production and well over $100,000 so far in legal and consulting fees. And in 2014, the Forest Service notified the permittee that those voluntary reductions would now become permanent. Upon appeal, the Forest Service listened to the alleged violations, and their own NEPA specialists concurred that there were violations. And in the end, they agreed they were going to keep the permanent reduction in place, only to be repealed on discretionary review. In that process, a forest range manager openly threatened that they would strictly and unjustifiably hold the rancher to a minimum 40% utilization and 4-inch to 6-inch stubble height. They followed through with this in November of this year at the outcry of the Grand Canyon Trust and Mary O'Brien, and cited this rancher for 0.8 inches of overutilization on this allotment. It's absolutely unconscionable what is going on. We had a December 11th meeting with the Forest Service in Beaver, Utah. It became very apparent in that meeting that there was an improper, unjustified, and imbalanced relationship going on between the Forest Service and Mary O'Brien with the Grand Canyon Trust. I asked them in that meeting, I said, why is this allotment being nitpicked, unjustifiably reviewed? What is going on here? And the answer is telling. I want you to remember this. The answer was, well, that's the one they picked. You have to ask yourself, who's running the Forest Service if that's the one they picked? The very basis of our republic form of government has been undermined by the Forest Service unbalanced treatment of private NGOs as comrades and elected officials sidestepped and ignored as adversaries. It's absolutely critical to put a stop to this predatory collusion between the federal land managers and private special interest groups that I'm talking about. All right, thank you.
Thank you.